Hi everyone, just continuing on again with my story. This is part 4. I left off where I was totally confused that maybe I got it all wrong, and maybe all the suspicions I had about my grandfather and my father were wrong. I don't know, but I was a mess. And this is March 94. I saw a counsellor and she suggested I give the abuse stuff a bit of a break, and I'd thought the same thing. With all the other stresses going on, it was too taxing. I had money worries as a single parent, Matt's ADD, Olivia's emotional problems, as well as the issues in my family. I was going through a time of deep self-hatred again. So I basically just tried to get on with my own healing and coping with my own life. Then one day I went out witnessing with a sister we'll call Jenny, and she had been out witnessing with my mum, and she told me my mum had been very upset, so she was sort of trying to comfort my mum, and I told her it was more of an emotional thing than a physical thing. And then Jenny did know of my suspicions. She was one of the few people I had told. She is an elder's wife. So thinking it might help if Mum talked about it, she said, "Oh, I know what's going on." But I hadn't told her. I'd only told her about Pop. And so when she said, "Oh, I know what's going on," Mum was saying things to her like, "Oh, it's bad enough when she's saying it about her grandfather, but to her that she can say that about her own father." And so Jenny was quite shocked with this new bit of information that she got. So Jenny was telling me how she felt sorry for Mum, and I said, I feel sorry for her too, but if it was up to me, she never would have known any of this. It's only because of my brother's breaking my confidence, and that's what upset me so much. But at least Jenny was neutral about it, which I was grateful. She was, she cared about Mum and she cared about me, and she was really good at the time. It was actually her that put me onto a book, which I got a lot out of, a book called Reach for the Rainbow. I did receive a shepherding call from another elder. I'll call him Sam. He came one day and he was quite nice. I was feeling really down because I wasn't performing very well with field service and everything, and didn't feel I had any value as a person. And he actually did say to me, "Oh, the very fact that you love Jehovah makes you worthwhile." So that was really nice. So it was pretty much one day up, one day down. I was feeling really bad at this time. My health had suffered because of what was going on. I had a distinct feeling from the elders in my congregation, a negative feeling. I could just sense it. And I actually spoke to Con, one of the elders, at one stage, and I was telling him how I felt, and he actually confirmed it. He said, "Yeah, well, apparently they'd had an elders meeting, and in one of these elders meetings, my dad had produced a letter that he'd received from some sister somewhere, I don't know where, and they knew of what was happening, what all the stories that were going around apparently by then." Anyway, in the elders meeting, he actually said, "Oh, Marie Clifford has been spreading this." Now, I didn't believe that to be true at all, and I told Con at the time, I don't think she's behind it at all. I think there's been leaks elsewhere. It saddened me that Dad was blackening Marie's name further, and so my parents went away on holidays not long after that, the holiday they had planned, and I actually felt a bit better. So I decided that because I was under their watchful eye all the time, and what was going on, and the attitude of the elders towards me, that it would probably be better if I went to a different congregation than my parents. So that's what I planned to do. So my parents were away on their holiday in Perth, and I wrote a letter to my mum. So because of the attitude towards me, I wrote a letter to the body of elders, and I gave a bit of a copy to all of them, copy of my story up until that point, but with names changed, and just to fill them in. And I also sent a copy to the CO, Circuit Overseer. And on Sunday, two of the elders, Larry and Alan, came around to visit me, and it was like talking to a brick wall, as usual. I was told of two other people that they were aware of who had heard the stories about me and my dad. And so I said, well, have you approached these people and asked them where they're getting their information from? It seemed to me that would be the sensible thing to do. But anyway, after my discussion with them, it pretty much made up my mind that that's it, I'm changing congregations. Marie and Paul and I continued to help people wherever we could, and I actually did a lot of research and put together some excerpts from Watchtower and Awake magazines on all this stuff, on emotional issues, depression, abuse, whatever. And I've included them in the back of the book. Anyone who wants to read them, they'll be there. And one day during this time, I actually called on one of the elders' wives after witnessing, and I said to her that, what I was dealing with. I don't think she knew, even though her husband was an elder. At this stage, she didn't know, and I just said, I'm sort of going through stuff from being abused when I was a child, and she actually started to cry. She said, happened to me too. So I went on to share, as I said, a lot of the info that I'd gathered from magazines, and she ended up saying to me, Jehovah must have sent you here today, it's just what I needed. And we'd get comments like that from a lot of the people that we were trying to support. It was, I remember at one stage hearing a comment that the elders were saying that I was going around seeing people and I would undo all the good work they'd done when they visited people, trying to tell them they should get out witnessing more into the meetings, and that would fix everything. Then in June 94, the elder I'd written a letter to, Marie and I met with him to discuss the situation. This talk went pretty well. I learned a few more things from him. He confirmed that the elders believe that since I've been dealing with these abuse issues, that it's affected my spirituality. I said it's affected my performance, but not my spirituality. We talked for about an hour and a half, actually, that day. And, this was after we'd written the letters. And we said we didn't need to pursue any of the issues. We just was going to leave it with Jehovah. And he actually recommended I go to a new congregation. He referred me to the June 1, 1982. I got Awake here, but it must be in a Watchtower if it was June the 1st, which was an article on each one in his place. He also explained a little bit more clearly about this ecclesiastical privilege thing and the legal implications regarding anyone confessing to an elder. Around this time, one of the sisters that we were supporting found herself in a really difficult situation. I'll read a bit of this from my book notes rather than try and remember it all. This has been a dreadful week. Last week I was there at the sister's request with Patricia when she arranged for two elders to call and told them she was having a problem with smoking due to the pain of dealing with past sexual abuse. These brothers kindly and sincerely pointed out that if she would just get to the meetings regularly, she'd be able to get a full measure of Holy Spirit and thus gain the self-control she needed. Due to her problems, Patricia has been in a suicidal state, and this affected her ability to get to meetings. Also, she was plagued with great feelings of unworthiness and felt too dirty to associate with clean people at the Kingdom Hall. A judicial committee was arranged, and the following Wednesday she met with 3 elders at the Kingdom Hall. A very harrowing experience in itself for any abuse victim. At the initial discussion with the 2 elders, an attempt was made to remind them of the following information that had been published. And that was where I showed them a lot of the info from an April 22, 94 wake on addictions. Had some great stuff, and the link even between abuse and addictions. It says these can stop. There's a difference between abuse and addiction. Many who abuse substances are not addicted. These can stop the abuse and then not have a compulsion to return to it. But those who are addicted find they cannot stop. Many who are dependent on alcohol or drugs use them as escape routes from emotional crises. And so there was a lot of good stuff there, and I was trying to show them that the whole smoking thing was linked to her recovering memories of abuse. She'd stopped smoking, got baptised, and then when this all came up, which is pretty normal, she just slipped back into smoking again. And the thing was, she didn't get caught or anything. She voluntarily went to the elders and told them, look, this is what's happening. I've been smoking again, and I'm trying to get myself together, but I just wanted to let you know. But the information didn't seem to get through to them. She felt that she couldn't really promise them that she could fully conquer her smoking problem until, as one of the Awake articles had said, you need to look under the hood to see what the problem is before you can really do anything about the addiction. So she arranged to see a counsellor, hoping that by dealing with her issues she'd be able to get a handle on the smoking thing. Apparently the brothers were unable to link her 2 problems together, the smoking and the abuse. And at the committee meeting she was told to go home and throw out her cigarettes that she had and to rely on Jehovah. The Watchtower of August 193 on page 7 says, Bible study enabled Leonard and Elaine to stop abusing drugs, but the force actuating the mind had not come into full play. Soon other addictions surfaced. For 20 years we tried to apply Bible principles and have a satisfying marriage, but it was always out of our grasp, says Elaine. Our addictions are deeply rooted. We were unable to study or pray them away. Leonard and Elaine sought counselling to understand the causes of the addictions. Now, it's an interesting thing here because Paul was an elder at the time. Well, up until Marie started dealing with her stuff that was coming up, and he picked up at the time too that the things that were said in the magazines that recommended getting counselling and everything, they were told a different story in private meetings as elders, or in letters even that they got from the society. They were not to encourage, which made sense then why we were just sort of trying to point out all this great stuff that was in the magazines, and they just didn't seem to get it. So the elders arranged to meet Patricia again in 2 weeks' time and said that if she couldn't tell them she hadn't had a smoke in that time, that she'd be disfellowshipped. Funny part was an abused sister in another congregation had deliberately had an affair and wrote a letter disassociating herself. But the elders there, who knew her background, refused to accept the letter, and they gave her time to consider her situation, and she decided she really wanted to please Jehovah, and so she's working on building up her relationship with him. Yeah, the magazines went on and they talk about ancestry being a factor and things, and why it's harder for some, and the addiction to tobacco, all these great quotes that we had. And then I put here in my notes, at no time has Patricia ever argued that she should be allowed to smoke. She feels dreadful about it, but she needs help. My notes I've got this same week, in trying to make a point to the elders by reading excerpts from Watch Terror and Awake articles on abuse, addiction, and the fact that Jehovah understands even if no one else does, I was told my viewpoint based on these articles was dangerous thinking. And one elder commented that he knew a sister who had similar ideas who ended up turning apostate. I was really scared because all I was using was quotes from the magazines. It was just incredible. Anyway, that was bad enough, that situation with Patricia, but on the 15th of June I wrote a letter to my parents while they were away telling them that I was going to be attending a different congregation. I'll just read the relevant part of the letter. I said, I also wanted to let you know that I've decided it would be in the best interests of all of us if I go to a different congregation. You're obviously no more comfortable with the situation than I am. The stress is affecting my health and also the kids. It's not really what I want to do, but I believe I have no choice. I hope it makes things easier for you too when you get back. Love, Joanna. On the 15th of June 94, I wrote another letter to the body of elders in my congregation. The same time I wrote the letter to my mother saying I was changing congregations. On the 18th of June, the day after I delivered my letter personally to the home of each elder, because I wanted them to have the information, 2 elders who first visited me came to see me. This had actually already been arranged because they wanted to discuss, among other things, these leaks that were about, the allegations against my father. In spite of all the information that I'd given them in trying to help them understand, their main concern was that dealing with abuse issues was affecting me spiritually. And there was not even any validation of the pain I was going through or my healing process or any. They confirmed that they believed I was obsessed with abuse. I mean, if somebody discovers they've got cancer and we're going through treatment for that, what would be their topic of conversation, do you think, every time you spoke to them? I was mainly criticised because of my poor field service record and was told that perhaps the time that I spent with these sisters, even though I was trying to help them, would be better spent in the field service. It's like they're more worried about people's hours than the person underneath. I was also told I should seek out some spiritually upbuilding company. And yet the time I spent with these sisters, we would talk about Jehovah, we would discuss articles from the magazines and things, and probably more spiritual conversation than I had with the average person that I might chat to at the Kingdom Hall, I might add. As I said, they were more interested in my field service record than what I might be going through underneath. And it was when I tried to explain in part what I was going through and how difficult it was, I was reminded of the old saying, I used to complain about a man who had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. Very encouraging. Thank you, brothers. I know they don't understand, but it was really hard. If I could just quote again from my notes, I've written here, sisters being criticised for helping those with emotional problems have constantly tried to accept that these brothers mean well, although most times their comments are as described so well in the June 182 Watchtower, page 9, regarding Job's comforters. They failed to understand what Job's problems were all about. The Interpreter's Bible evaluates their so-called comfort. It becomes an irritant. It is a comment from the sidelines with a bit of good advice thrown in, like someone safely up on the beach throwing a cheery word or two to poor souls wrestling in the great dark deeps, with the huge billows knocking the breath out of them. What Job needs is the compassion of a human heart. What he gets is a series of absolutely true and absolutely beautiful religious cliches and moral platitudes. Well-intentioned or not, the lack of understanding from some elders due to the abundance of information provided through the faithful and discreet slave is becoming inexcusable, just as not seeing Jehovah's invisible qualities through his creation is inexcusable, quoting Romans 1:20. The elders explained to me that in a judicial committee they have to take into account how much the person's responded to help that's been offered. And they felt that because Patricia hadn't attended meetings and participated in field service in response to their earlier visits, that she wasn't responding to their spiritual help. Sorry, but I have to keep going from my notes here because I don't think I can remember all this to tell you straight up. When Patricia told them how difficult it was for her to have to keep bearing her soul to the elders, she was told, "You don't have to. There's no need for you to discuss child abuse with us. We're sorry it happened to you, but that's not the issue. The issue is smoking." As so well explained in the Addictions Awake of April 2294, many going through emotional stress fall back on old addictions. Unfortunately for Patricia, hers was smoking. And then it said further down, with good reason, recovering may temporarily become a person's all-consuming concern. Temporarily is what the word we would look. Productivity may be affected in the case of those recovering, but the long-term goal is to get well and serve Jehovah better than ever before. It would appear that sometimes baptism and thus Jehovah's strength brings some to the point of being able to face deeper pain. That was my thought. One sister actually commented, she said, "What's the point in spending time studying with dysfunctional people when after baptism they're just going to get kicked out because they've got problems?" So in spite of all the things I wrote in my letter to the elders, because I did say things about my dad, not in a bad way, but just wanted to make them aware of things. They didn't, none of it was mentioned when they came to visit. There was a good quote in the August 22 Awake. It was on chronic fatigue, but it applied to a lot of things. It said, good advice is don't waste your energy defending yourself. Yeah, avoid trying to explain the condition to skeptics who won't understand. That does apply in a lot of cases, unfortunately. Patricia's problem battling cigarette addiction became even harder to handle over the next few weeks due to the extra tension caused by being unable to get the elders to understand the link between past abuse and her addiction. Concern for others who may come up against the same situation motivated her to write the following letter to the Watchtower Society in Sydney. And this is an annexure in my book as well, Patricia's letter to Ingleburn. Also, her thoughts she wrote down, which she called Suicide on Paper. Yeah, so as I said, my parents were away in Perth, and then I got a reply from my mum to my letter telling her I would go to another congregation. And again, I have to read it, I'm sorry. My dear Joanna, the weather here is wet and cold, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da. Everyone here sends their love to you. We're very happy with the family photos. I was very sad to read you were going to another congregation. I cried a lot when I learnt you were leaving the group. I cannot understand why. We certainly are not uncomfortable. Why should we be? We are not the guilty party. It is very sad for us both that you have turned your children against us. We can feel this by the way we are treated by them. We still love you all very much. We thought staying away for a few weeks may have brought you to your senses, but evidently not. This is far harder than outside persecution. However, I have thrown my burden on Jehovah, and no doubt at some time in the future it will be resolved, even if it is only after our death. I hope you will be happy and keep faithful to Jehovah. Dad sends his love to you all. Love, your broken-hearted mother. Kiss, 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 kiss. P.S. Dad said, will you please keep your eye open for the Myer account in the mail and readdress it, as it has to be paid. P.P.S. Love also to the children. Sure. So then I wrote the following reply. Dear Mum, your letter came today. I'm rather puzzled by some of it though. An elder told me recently your relationship with your parents can obviously never be the same again. I don't think they know how to handle the situation any more than you do. This is one of the reasons I decided to go to another congregation. I really thought it would make things easier for you too. If you'll think about it honestly, you might remember that if it wasn't for Fred and Lionel, you wouldn't be having to deal with any of this. I have to ask myself why they didn't consider your feelings above their own need to run to you to discuss it. I tried to protect you from being hurt, but that's never been acknowledged by any of you. There are a lot of things I haven't told you, and never will, to spare your feelings. I have a lot of major issues to deal with. I need to be around people who understand and validate what I'm going through. I don't discuss any of these things with my family because none of you want to know about it. More consideration I tried to show that isn't acknowledged. As far as coming to my senses, I don't know what you're talking about. Perhaps you could explain to me exactly why you think that way. If you recall, that day you and Dad first called in to see me about what Lionel had said, I told you it was a dead issue from that moment. The only times it's been brought up since then have been by Dad, not me. He won't let it die. None of the elders would know anything if he hadn't told them. I certainly wouldn't have. You sat there that day, and even though I've never asked you to choose, you said, well, I believe Dad because I know he's not that sort of person who'd do something like that. I told you there is no sort of person. You could have said, well, I love you both and I won't take sides. I've also told you I know it's possible that I could have molested someone in the past and blocked it out. You never defended me. Does that mean you think I'm capable of this behaviour but not Dad? Is that what you want me to think? You chose to take sides, Mum. Don't blame me for the consequences. I've learned that lies have been told. Perhaps that's why you're feeling the way you are. I don't have any power over the lies people tell, unfortunately. I just have to wear it. Are your feelings about me due to anything I've directly said or done to you, or something you've been told about me? I definitely have not turned my children against you. Perhaps you'd better take that up with them. Also, as far as you're being persecuted and broken-hearted, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I've told you before I'll not accept the guilt for that either. You're not the only one being persecuted. What about me? How do you think I feel? I have 2 brothers who supposedly care about me, who never contact me or their niece and nephew. I don't understand that either. If that's how they want it, though, that's their problem. How do you think I felt when I walked into your house and saw Pop's photo restored to its place of honour? You chose again to believe in your image of your dead father rather than me. I'm just trying to get on with my own life. Please let me be an independent adult. I've thrown everything on Jehovah too, so we'll also wait for him to resolve matters. No matter what anyone says or does to me, they can't take Jehovah away from me. He's always there for me, and he's the one I answer to. He knows the truth. Despite everything, I've tried to keep the peace, and I've told you I'm here for you and Dad if you need anything, and that I appreciate everything you've done for me. I don't know of anything more I can do. Love, Joanna. I also then wrote a letter to the Circuit Overseer. Oh, gosh. I'd earlier sent him the same information I'd given to each individual letter. Yeah, I actually wrote to him about Patricia and her situation that was going on, trying to get a better help there. Oh my goodness. Now I've got my notes. 3rd of July 94, never a dull moment. Last Sunday, committee decided to disfellowship Patricia. Couldn't believe it. She's devastated. Feels like they ripped Jehovah away from her. Phoned the CO regarding the procedure of appeal. On Friday, Patricia decided to appeal after all, after initially refusing, and gave her letter to Con. Larry phoned her Saturday night, quick work, to say that the judicial hearing was arranged with appeal committee for Sunday at 1:30. Con checked with Ed for us regarding having Marie there for support and got the okay. Con's wife Jenny came over to Savo to be here when we got news. Much joy when we learned they'd overturned the decision. The brothers were very kind and compassionate, and Con told us they'd received a reply from Bethel re Patricia's letter. Hopefully this will result in the brothers being a bit more understanding of abuse victims. Next drama will be Mum's reaction to my reply to her letter, in which she accused me of turning Olivia and Matt against her and how I'd evidently not come to my senses. She's not impressed with my changing congregations, I'm afraid. And we go down. 5th of July 94, Marie rang last night to tell me about the latest Watchtower August the 1st on reasonableness. Wonderful stuff. All the things we've been saying. La-di-da, la-di-da, la-di-da. Lost my cool with my kids. Then I wrote another letter. I wrote a lot of letters. I wrote this letter to Larry, the elder, on 9th of July. I don't even know what's in it, but it's in the book somewhere. I went to another congregation. My daughter was a bit of a mess and was only doing part-time days at school. She actually talked about taking too many pills so that she could just go into hospital and didn't have to worry about anything, and she was crying, and yeah, that's all there. If anyone that's interested in reading it when I finally finish it. Another week and Mum and Dad get home. Oh yeah, one of the elders phoned me Fred, he called him, concerned at the talk my moving congregations might cause. And he told me that day I talked to him that I should change congregations. I have no confidence in any backup from my family. Alan was going on about people talking, but when I queried if they'd done any follow-up regarding the two people that Larry had mentioned, Alan just said, well, I don't know either of them. What's that got to do with it? The whole thing gets crazier every day. When will it end? I have a feeling sparks will fly when my parents get back. And so it goes on. Now for one of the good parts. On the 31st of July 94, Fred and Lionel paid a brief surprise call on me. They said they didn't want to get into a lengthy discussion, but wanted to know if I still felt the same way about Dad. I told them I was sorry, but I would not discuss it with them because of their revealing earlier confidential discussions. Again, I felt like I was in a bit of a catch-22 situation. If I'd said, yes, I still felt the same, I think they would go straight to Dad, as they did before, and tell him. And if I'd said no, I thought, well, they're going to ask me now to tell everybody that I was wrong, and anyway, they repeated their question, and when I again declined to discuss it with them, except with supporting unbiased elders present, they got up and walked out. I wrote the following letter to them and sent a copy to our parents. That's all there. I continued to make contact with my parents, calling in and making small talk, trying to achieve some sort of stability in our relationship. Then I posted what I figured would probably be my final letter to my brothers after everything that had happened, which you can read in the book. I figured I had nothing to lose. Oh boy. 27th of August 94, Mama phoned during the week to say she and Dad will buy me $30 worth of meal tickets for the assembly and pay for our bus fares. I said, thanks, that'll be nice. Oh dear. Went witnessing Tuesday. Felt so good about it, then I missed Tuesday and Thursday meeting. At least I can get the tape of Thursday and Sunday if I don't make it. Another sister rang who was going through memories of abuse. I did some more release letters. I soaked in the bath. I went and visited the suburb where I grew up to see if that might prompt some memories for me. 4th September 94, the same two elders who originally contacted me when my father first approached them about the matter came again to see me. Along with several bits of misinformation they mentioned, some of which they claimed came from Dad, they stated that Fred and Lionel had written the body of elders charging me with slander. After this visit, I wrote the following statement and sent a copy to my parents. That letter is there in my book. I got to tell you this one. Hopefully I can do this one without looking at my notes. As I said, Dad bought some script, which I don't know if it's the same worldwide, but we use that instead of money. Worked out pretty well, actually. Now, just thinking about it then, talking about the society making money, and I thought if you would buy so much script, you could still get some at the assembly. But if you bought more than you actually needed, I know a lot of people used to just chuck it in the contribution. Not that it mattered, they had the money anyway. But yeah, if you bought more than you needed, they scored that way anyway. Anyway, got sidetracked. Dad had bought $30 worth of script for me and the kids for the assembly, for bits and pieces, and paid for our bus fares. There was a special bus going to the district assembly, as they normally did. Being a single parent and not really wanting to drive and have to worry about where I was going to park and all that, I went on the bus. This was what is now Suncorp Stadium. In those days it was called Lang Park, and it was football field. So most of the seats, were made for that football fans who would be jumping up and down all the time and didn't have to sit there for like 8 hours a day or whatever on these hard seats with no backs on them. Anyway, I'm digressing again. So we caught one of the special buses, and just my luck, Dad had been made captain of the bus that we were on. But that was all right. He sat about halfway down the bus and we just sat up the back each time. And then one evening we were coming home from the assembly and we'd started to sing some Kingdom songs up the back of the bus. Quite a lot of the young kids and a few others. And we were having fun singing the songs, and it started to get a bit dark. And those buses had the individual little overhead lights that you could have if you wanted to read something. But obviously there was a master switch because we tried to turn one on, but it didn't work. So this brother that was there, I think he must have been the dad of one of the kids. I said to him, I'll go and ask the driver if he'll turn the switch on. But instead of going to the driver, he went to the captain. He didn't know this was my dad. I didn't know this brother. Anyway, he went down and I saw him say a few words to Dad. Then he came back up to us with this puzzled look on his face and he just said no. And I said, what? And he just shrugged his shoulders. So I think he was as surprised as I was. And I said, I'll just go ask the driver. And for some reason, I don't know, obedience or whatever, probably he went back to Dad. Again, a few words were exchanged and he came back up again. And I said, what did he say? And he said, well, I told him, you know, the kids were trying to sing the songs, but they couldn't see the words properly in the books because it was getting a bit dark. So he said, tell them to eat more carrots. Carrots are good for the eyesight. I just couldn't believe it. Anyway, so that was the end of the singing. I wasn't going to say anything, but a couple of days later I was round at Mum's and in true Mum style she was saying, wasn't that lovely, the young ones singing on the bus. It was really lovely to hear the Kingdom melodies, Kingdom songs. And I sort of said, well, since you brought it up, what was this business? What did Dad say? What's this business about telling them to eat carrots? And Mum said, he didn't say that. I was sitting right next to him. He didn't say that. And that was another one of those times when I thought, I realise now it's probably what you call cognitive dissonance, where what you're hearing doesn't fit with what you believe, so you have to block, I don't know. Anyway, that's that. A couple of months went by and I heard nothing from my family, nothing from the elders, and so I'd been feeling much better since I unloaded and sent a letter off to the elders, and Alan rang in response to my letter. Yeah, that's right. He said his main concern was of Fred, Lionel and Dad was the meeting at the coast that we'd had. This is with the elders and their wives. Don't know whatever for. Alan wanted me to ring the brother who arranged the meeting to get him to speak to people he named and set them straight. I don't know what that's really about because, anyway, it says here I rang him and passed on the message. He's as bewildered as I am. Because I'd talked to him about Dad. He's one of the elders I saw. October 94, got through the second week of the school holidays. Off medication since just before the holidays. Been feeling pretty good. Bit tired from holiday adventures. Going to Redcliffe Monday. School starts Tuesday. Bit shaken up by watching the movie With a Vengeance. Pretty disgusted with my whole family. I understand them better than they do, but the hurt is still there. I finally realised no need for me to feel guilty over something I'm not responsible for. Feel a tremendous weight off my shoulders since not contacting them. Olivia has spoken to Mum on the phone a few times. 3rd of October 94. In one way I have a sense of peace that I've never had before. Amazingly, I don't feel guilty not contacting my family. Excuse me. More a sadness that they've really forced my hand to make this decision, and by so doing they've taken away from me the opportunity to do what Jehovah wants as far as caring for my parents in their old age. I would have still done it, but they've made it impossible, and of course it gives them something else to use against me, blah blah. Oh yeah, one day One day Mum phoned for a how are you call, making small talk, or trying to. I didn't feel very responsive. I wrote another letter telling Mum and Dad I wouldn't take any more pretend we're a happy family phone calls. But the morning I was about to post it, I got another one of those calls from Mum, just letting me know they hadn't forgotten. It was the 28th of October, my birthday. She didn't say birthday, but they hadn't forgotten what date it was. I wrote again to the CO, sending him a copy of my letter to my mum and dad. And so it went on, and it seemed to me that, this is how I felt, it was like I was caterpillar, butterfly, caterpillar, butterfly. It would just go up, down, like that all the time. I posted my letter to the circuit overseer and asked him if I could see him, spend a bit of time with him when he visited the congregation. Oh yeah, that's the next part of the story. When the elders visited me, that on that last occasion, concerned about the leaks, about the stories about my father, I had said to them, well, it seems simple to me, go find out from these people where they got their information and get to the source of it and, do that. So I was pretty cheesed off because I hadn't heard any more. I wrote letters off to the presiding overseers of the congregations of these three people that I'd been told had known something, or somehow they knew about it. And the letters are there in the book, if I ever get it finished and printed. I hadn't heard any more after I'd gotten this charge of slander. I was really cheesed off. So I got here tonight. I phoned Larry to ask if he had heard anything further about the source of the gossip these people heard. He said no, and I'm happy about that. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, I'm not one to follow up gossip. I think it's better left alone. No news is good news. I then asked him, my letter to the elders, was that read out to the body? And he said, well, I read it, but I don't think it was read out. And I asked, why not? I addressed it to the body. He said, I don't know, you'd have to talk to Alan about that. So I rang Alan. I asked him also if he'd heard anything further. And he said, no, your brothers are the ones who were jumping up and down, so we threw it back on them. I haven't heard any more. I then said, Larry tells me my letter wasn't read out to the body of elders. Can you tell me why not, seeing as how I addressed it to the body? He said, I assumed you'd sent each elder a copy, as you had with other letters. I knew your brothers had a copy. And I said, fair enough, I can understand that. He said he would see that they all got to see it, and he then said, talking about this other sister who'd moved into our congregation, who happened to be a sister we were supporting. She did know about my suspicions about my dad, but as I said, I never knew she would end up in our congregation. And he said he'd gathered from a couple of things she said that she knew my story, and I said, oh, what did she say? And he said, well, one day she rang his place and he was at work and spoke to his wife and said that she couldn't go to the day group. Which one could she attend? And she was told about the one at my dad's place, but apparently she said, oh, I couldn't go there. I have my reasons. So Alan wasn't sure if his wife had twigged, but a couple of things made him wonder if she knew. I explained that she was put onto me by someone in our group of supporters because our situations were very similar. Anyway, and he said, yes, I could tell she was part of your group by the way she spoke. He suggested I be very cautious by what I say to her. Can't be sure where she might repeat it. I said, I realise that, but I'm fed up with everything and I know that he did it. It's just his word against mine, so I don't care. And Alan said, as far as we're concerned, it's a dead issue. I said, I believe she's spoken to Doug King. Alan said he's not sure if she really has. That people like her with schizophrenia or manic depression get confused about what they have and haven't said. A while after the call, it came to me that if Alan assumed all elders got a copy, he should have realised that wasn't the case. If Larry read it, because he would have had to read the one and only copy I sent to Alan that was addressed to the body. Oh, And I wrote letters again to my parents and the circuit overseer. So after nothing had happened about this this charge of slander and anybody chasing up these sisters, I decided I'd follow it up myself. I did get 2 replies to my letters that I wrote to the two of the presiding overseers, and I wrote a letter to the third one and said, "Look, forget what I said. I'm gonna chase it up myself." So I sort of at that time I prayed about it, and yeah, the replies are all there. They will be at the back of the book. So I figured I'd get these sisters' contact details, and this is what I plan to say. "Hello, such and such. This is Joanna. I won't keep you for a moment. I'm just after some information. I believe you're aware of some gossip concerning me and my father. What I need," a name again, "is to get to the source of this gossip, so could you please tell me who you heard it from so I can follow it up with them also?" So one sister said, "I can't remember." And the other one said, "I have no idea." So that was that. In the meantime, Marie had run into Susan, my brother's wife, her sister-in-law, who's not a witness. And one of the first things she said was, "Do you know what Joanna's been saying about her father?" So I had a feeling that maybe Fred's wife had been involved. Maybe she'd said something, I don't know. Maybe he found that out and wisely just let the matters drop, lest his wife got involved too. I don't know. That was just a thought I had at the time. In November 94, I received a phone call from my mum. And again, I apologise. I have to do it from my notes. "Mum, hello. Are you going to be home this morning?" Me, "Not to talk to you, I won't be." "Mum, I beg your pardon." Me, "I won't talk to you and Dad without an elder present." "Mum, there's no need to get elders involved in family matters." Me, "Excuse me, but I was charged with slander through the congregation." "Mum, oh, that was the boys." Me, "Yes, but you obviously went along with it." "Mum, anyway, that's over with now." Me, "I've tried to get you to talk many times, sending letters." Mum, "But not personally." Me, "I wrote to you while you were in Perth, but you didn't answer my questions." Mum, "I thought silence was the best way." Me, "Tell me, Mum, do you believe I was sexually abused?" Mum, "No, I don't." Me, "Then we've got nothing to talk about. You have no idea what I've been through, how I feel." Mum, "How do you think we feel?" Me, "I understand how you feel. If I'd had my way, you never would have faced any of this. You never would have known anything if the boys hadn't broken my confidence." Mum, "You did it the wrong way." Me, "No, I didn't." "Do you believe I was sexually abused at all?" Mum, "Not by your father, I don't." Me, "I didn't say by whom. I just asked if you believe it happened to me." Mum, "Well, can you tell me who?" Me, "That's not the issue. The issue now is the way my friends have been treated. The way Dad has treated Marie is disgusting. The way this whole thing has been handled is wrong." Mum, "You won't talk about it then?" Me, "I didn't say that. I won't talk about it with you today. I want to think about it and I'll get back to you. Goodbye. I just felt it wasn't a matter of not trusting my parents. I just knew the power of denial, and I thought I need a neutral witness to be there. Someone else who would hear what was said, and unbiased. So I made up a bit of a checklist then, that if we did get together, if I did have a talk to my parents, the questions that I still wanted answered. I won't talk them now, but Jeff was the brother who'd come over from New Zealand. He was warned by one of the Logan Home West elders. I'm saying the congregation because you'll understand why when I get to the end of the story. even though I'm using false names, stating the congregation's name, and you will understand why. Yeah, he'd been warned to stay away from me, and others have been told derogatory things regarding me and warned you have to be careful who you associate with. I tried to make peace some months back, but apart from things I already couldn't understand but hoped to put behind me. This is in my letter to Mum. I cannot understand why you spoke to Tim. Even if you think it's okay because you're an elder dad, which I disagree with, what about Mum? Did he? Wrote to Mum again, because I think in that one, I think I'd said I wouldn't talk to them without somebody unbiased being present. Then in November 94, I said, Dear Mum, further your phone call, I've thought things through and decided that since you don't want to meet with the elders, but are now willing to discuss things, the only way this can be done is by correspondence. So I will not discuss anything by telephone or in person because without the presence of an unbiased witness, I'll be misquoted, la-di-da. Then I think I need to end this one for now. Yeah, this is November 94. And to be continued. Bye.